Lab E, PowerShell Scripting Review. As always, the purpose of this nugget is to review the lab items, and the assumption is that you've taken some time to download the lab document and tried to complete the lab items on your own. What I'm going to show you are just sample solutions. They're not necessarily the only correct answers. So everything I'm going to do in this sample solution is equally applicable to PowerShell version 2, 3, and beyond. I am going to be working in PowerShell 3 simply because I prefer its integrated scripting environment to that of PowerShell version 2. So this is just a choice of me liking this particular tool a lot better. So I'm going to start with a couple of commands, and I'm going to go ahead and type these in, see how that works. Get WMyObject, class, Win32, operating system, and we wanted to do this to multiple computers, but I'm just going to take exactly what was in the lab document as my starting point, so you can kind of see exactly how I progress from the one to the other. So we're going to create a computer name column, and we're going to set it equal to the $under server. Now, you may be thinking, yeah, but in PowerShell version 3, all the WMI objects come with a PS computer name property. So why do you have to create this? They do come with a PS computer name in 3 and later. Like I said, I want this to be compatible back to version 2, so I'm just going to add my own computer name. And we're also going to select the OS architecture. Hope I spelled that right. And the next command was get WMyObject class Win32 process from computer name, same one. Oh, you know what? It is actually processor. Processor. That's a huge difference, isn't it? And then so we're selecting the first one because I guess the theory is all the processors in the computer are likely to be the same, so we just need to look at one of them. And what are we grabbing out here? We are going to create a column called, @ very important, proc architecture. That's a tough word to spell. And then the expression on that is going to be $underbar address width. Now you notice that the formatting I've done here, I've hit enter after the pipeline, after a comma, and after a semicolon. For me, it just helps kind of keep this whole thing easier to read, right? Like if I'm doing a presentation sometimes, I'll want to bump up the font size, and then you don't get as much vertical space or horizontal space. And so kind of keeping everything tight like this helps. And look, if you wanted to type all those out on a single line, you're not going to hurt anybody. I'm just going to save this as ctest.ps1 and run it real quick, just as a quick check to see if I got any error messages or typos or anything goofy like that. It's going to take it a few seconds to contact the domain controller and retrieve that information. Hopefully it will work without error. There goes the computer name and the OS architecture. And hopefully in a few seconds it'll be able to get that processor. It didn't. So that's kind of important. Now sometimes you can run into little issues. You know what? Just as a test, because I'm hoping this will be a good illustration of what goes wrong here. Let's just try and run the highlighted portion. Yeah, there we go. So I'm wondering now if I scroll all the way over. No. So here's the problem you can run into, and this is something that I mentioned before. When you've got two different commands in the same script, the script only gets a single pipeline. And if those commands are outputting different objects, which these are, sometimes PowerShell, its formatting system sees those two different objects in the pipeline. It doesn't quite know how to deal with it. And so that's why one of our assignments is to create a unified output object of sorts. So to do that, I'm just going to go ahead and save this in a variable. Now that means I need to indent that a little bit to keep everything nice and pretty and neat. And that was operating system, and this is going to be proc, so we'll put that in a variable as well. A little indent to keep everything neat. That's going to bug me if those aren't lined up. Now I can start creating my unified output object. my properties are going to be computer name equals, well, we're going to be using a computer name for input, so I'm just going to take that. And then we wanted OS architecture. Oops. Architecture. Gosh, that's a hard word. And that's in my OS variable, and it's under OS architecture. And then the next thing I wanted was the proc architecture, which is in my proc variable under proc architecture. I've done a little bit of redundant work here. In my original command, I created this computer name column, but I'm actually not using that down here. I'm taking this from the computer name variable, which I have not yet defined. So I'm just going to whack that. In fact, I kind of didn't need to do this custom proc architecture property name, because down here I could have just grabbed it from the original proc.address width. So that actually means all of this isn't necessary. And it also means this isn't necessary. I don't need to select that if it's the only one I'm using. I'll just use the only one I want to use. So sometimes moving from a command into a script means that you can simplify things a little. Now this is important. Keep in mind that every running computer only has one operating system, so I'm guaranteed to only get one instance of Win32 operating system. But a given computer can absolutely have more than one processor. And if I retrieved all of the processors, then proc would contain a collection, not just a single one. Well, if I'm going to be pulling information, I can only pull information from one at a time. So my choices would be to go get all of them, see how many I got, and if I got more than one, I'd have to enumerate through them. But I don't need that. I just need this one piece of information that's going to be the same for all of them. And so selecting off just the first one ensures that no matter how many processors the computer has, I'm only getting one of them in the proc variable. So having created my props variable, which is what I want included in my output, new object, type name, PS object, property, props. That will create my new custom object, attach that information to it, and then because I didn't tell it to do anything else, it will output that to the pipeline. So now we need to make sure that I'm accepting my input, and my lab assignment says to ensure that this has a computer name parameter and to ensure that that can accept multiple computer names. Okay. So param string accept multiples computer name. I've got a couple of choices here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make sure we're only hitting one computer at a time. So I'm going to put a for each loop, computer in computer name, and everything in here is going to go inside of there. Typically when you're working with multiple computers, you do only want to deal with one at a time. That way if an error occurs on this one, I can bomb out of here and I can come back and get the next computer and keep trying. And I've still got DC hard-coded, so I need to pull that out. And the $computer variable will be the variable that only has one computer name. This might have multiples, computer name, but this will only have one at a time, and my for each loop is making sure that that's the case. So let's run this again. I'm actually going to pop down to the shell command to do this. Where did I save that? In test. Let's make sure my execution policy is going to let this happen. I'm sure. Go ahead and run test with the computer name. Now, that's a very important thing to try, by the way. After you get your script name and path in there, immediately try and tab complete that parameter name. If it doesn't work, that means you've got a syntax error in there somewhere, and that's why PowerShell is not offering to tab complete. So let's just give it 1. Heck, let's be crazy. Let's give it 2. And we'll let that run and see what it does. And there we go. Now, a lot of folks will look at this and they'll say, Don, I hate the formatting. And they will pop back up in here and they'll try and do something with the formatting at this stage. A lot of folks will do this. Format table auto size. All right. So I'm going to save that. I just want to show you what happens and explain why. To keep it moving quicker, I'm just going to query the local host. And I'll do it a couple of times because, well, actually let's do it once. You do this the first time. Oh, yeah, that's what I want. Okay. Do it a couple more. Add a couple more computers on. See, now that's not so much what you wanted, was it? The problem is, every single time through my for each loop, I'm producing a new table. And so for each computer in computer name, I'm producing a new table. And so then folks will start to struggle with this. They'll say, well, maybe what I need to do is save these objects into a variable and output them at the end. But that's wrong. When you're building a script that retrieves information, that script should not be trying to format that information for visual display. Here's why. If I want it visually displayed, all I have to do is pipe the output of the script to format table. Boom, boom, boom. I get exactly what I wanted. I get a single, pretty looking, unified table that's not spread out all over the screen. By not having format table in my script, I'm not locking myself into a table. You know what? On Tuesdays, when my eyes are a little blurry from having gone out to the bar Monday night, maybe I want this information in a list. Well, because I have done this without my script doing any formatting, I have that flexibility. Maybe I wanted it in a CSV file. If I had hard-coded a format command inside my script, I wouldn't have this flexibility. So the idea when you write a script that's going to be retrieving information is just to retrieve the information. Don't worry about what it's going to look like on the screen. The output of the script, the information, can then be piped to other commands if you want it to look nice on the screen, or go to a CSV file, or be converted to HTML, or put into a nice table. Any of those things. So by keeping your script fairly generic and not making your script worry about the output display, you make your script more flexible. You can then pipe that output to whatever you want to get different kinds of output, table, CSV, HTML, whatever. So keep that in mind. That's one of the reasons I didn't do any formatting in here, and it's one of the reasons I almost never worry about what the output of my scripts looks like. I just worry on getting the data correct, getting the data formed properly, getting it named properly, getting whatever math needs to be done to make it look right. And once you do that, you pipe that output and then you're good to go. So that's our quick review. Keep in mind, as always, just because you got a slightly different answer doesn't mean you were wrong. That's why I call these sample solutions and not answers. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.